Hello everyone, welcome to this tutorial on Docker containers in action. Now that we understand what Docker is and why it's so useful, let's see Docker containers in action. If you want to go through the basics of Docker and how it's beneficial for web development, please go through first video in this Docker for Web Developer series. For now, think of this tutorial as a quick Hello World demo just to give you a taste of how Docker works in practice. So let's jump right in and see Docker in action. So let's open a command prompt and type Docker in it. It returns multiple management commands, common commands in return, which we will go through in detail in the later part of this series. What happens when you type Docker in the command prompt? When you type Docker or any Docker command like docker run hello world, you are actually interacting with two key components, Docker CLI or command line interface and Docker daemon, also known as Docker engine. The Docker CLI receives your command. The Docker command you type runs the Docker CLI, a client application installed on your system. The CLI doesn't do the heavy lifting itself. Instead, it takes your command like Docker run, Docker ps, Docker build, etc. and sends it as a request to the Docker daemon, which is a background service. Think of it like this. Docker CLI is a remote control. Docker daemon, the engine that actually runs the containers. The CLI communicates with the Docker daemon. The Docker CLI communicates with the Docker daemon using a REST API, usually over a local Unix socket or a TCP socket. Now let's see what happens when you type a Docker command in detail. So Docker daemon executes your command. Docker daemon is responsible for actual work, building images, creating and running containers, managing networks and volumes, interacting with registries like Docker Hub. Now in this video, we want to pull a Docker image. A Docker image is like a layered chocolate cake. Base layer is like your operating system layer like Ubuntu, Alpine. Middle layer, these includes your dependencies, libraries, and environment configurations. Top layer is your actual app code and final chapter commands. So let's see in action how to pull a Docker image. So now let's see how to pull an image from Docker. To pull an image from Docker Hub, the command is docker pull and then image name. So here let's try to download an nginx image with tag alpine. So we will give image name as nginx and tag name as alpine. Let's give that command. Now let's see what happens when we give this command in the background. Let's break down what happens under the hood when you run docker pull nginx. Here we can see Docker has pulled multiple layers of this particular image. Now let's see what happens when we give this command to download an image. First, the Docker CLI sends a request to Docker daemon. Essentially it says, hey Docker, please download nginx image with the tag alpine from Docker Hub. Docker checks your local image cache. Before downloading anything, the Docker daemon first checks your local cache to see if you already have the image layer stored. If you have already pulled nginx alpine before, it hasn't changed, Docker will say that image is up to date and skip the download. If it's not found locally, Docker proceeds to download. By default, Docker looks for the images on Docker Hub, which is the public registry it resolves. The registry will authenticate the request. If it's a public image, Docker pulls it directly. If it is private, it first checks your credential from Docker login. Docker downloads the image layer. Here we can see that Docker is pulling different layers. Docker downloads only the missing layers. So if you already have Alpine layers cached from another image, Docker reuses them. Once all layers are downloaded, Docker combines them into a read-only image stored locally. We will again give this docker pull command. We should see a message that this image is already stored. We can see here that we get a response the Docker image up to date for Nginx Alpine. Now let's see how we can use this image and start a container from this image. To do that, we need to use docker run command. So this is the particular command that we give to run a container from particular image. Here we want to run a container from Nginx Alpine image. So we have given this command. Now let's try to understand this command. This is the main command used to create and start a new container from a specified Docker image. This command tells Docker, run the Nginx web server in the background and map it to the port 8080 on my local machine. Hyphen D. Hyphen D is detached mode. This flag runs the container in detached mode, meaning it runs in the background, not in your current terminal window. You will still get the container ID as output, but your terminal remains free. Without D, Docker would run the container in the foreground, showing logs directly in your terminal. DESP8080:80. This is port forwarding. It connects a port on your host machine to port inside the container. So DESP8080:80 means map port 8080 on my host to port 80 inside the container. So when you give this command, a container will start running in your local machine. In return, you will get the container ID. This is a unique 64 character hash that identifies your running container. To verify that, you can run command docker ps, which will give you all the running containers in your machine. So here you can see we get first few digits of container ID, which matches here, and it is nginx alpine image. So this means that this particular container is running on my local machine. To verify that, open a browser window and give localhost 8080. You can see a nginx server is running in our local machine. So to see all the containers running in local machine, you can give command docker ps. If you want to see all the images in my machine, I can give the command docker images. And here I have only one image, nginx with tag alpine. So now let's see how we can remove a container. So to remove a container, we need to give command docker rm and then give first few digits of container ID. We get a response that container is running, so we will have to first stop it. So to stop a container, command is docker stop and few digits of container ID. Now this particular container is stopped. Now let's try to remove it, and you can see that container is removed. Now let's again give docker ps command and see if we find this container. No, this particular container is now removed and we can't find it. So in this video, we have seen how we can pull an image from Docker Hub, how we can run it locally, how we can see all the particular containers in our local machine, all the images, how to stop a container, and how to remove a container from the registry. That's it in today's video. We will further explore about more Docker commands in upcoming videos. Thank you for watching the video. If you like the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe the channel. Thank you very much.